So today I want to bring my combat tricks series to the masses. Yes, for those who are new to my channel, I've got a currently 5-part series that is basically dedicated to showcasing weird, cool, or powerful things that you can do on the Rift Magician that even many Limbo players are not aware of. However, I've also picked up on some unusual tricks that are just part of the normal game itself and can technically be used by any frame in the game to at least some degree. So whether you're a fellow Limbro or someone who never even plays the frame, hopefully this video will give you at least one new little trick that you might find at least some use for. Now let's start this video off with 3 very basic things that don't require any sort of mods and that can be used by pretty much everyone playing the game. And let's actually begin with something tied to reloading. Yeah, anytime when you're dealing with a weapon that has a slower reload time, such as the Volcar Wraith or the Soma Prime, you might want to try and pair that with some kind of melee weapon that has a fairly quick swing speed. You see, unless you're using a gun that reloads 1 bullet at a time, like the Strun or the Tsar, you normally cannot shoot during the reload animation even if you've got bullets left in the chamber. And this could be a bit of a problem if you accidentally hit the reload key too early or have a new enemy surprise you somehow while you were trying to reload. However, if you've got a quick melee of some sort on you, you could simply just swing at once and then immediately pull your gun out and start shooting. The reload won't have gone through, but you will have immediate access to whatever ammunition was still left in the chamber and can now freely unload that into the enemy's face. How effective this is, of course, depends heavily on your weapon's swing speed, but with most reasonably quick weapons, you'll have your gun back out and ready to use in usually half a second, which is significantly better than the 2 or 3 seconds usually required to reload many weapons. Next up, let's talk about rolling, because there's actually a few important little things to be aware of with this that aren't really well shown in game, and that can sometimes change your playstyle a bit. First, if you've got anything attached to you, such as Seeker Bombs or Brute Mother Leeches, simply roll to immediately kick them all off of you. Second, rolling also removes Limbo's Banish from you, and backwards rolls will strip away Volt's speed buff, at least for all 5 seconds it takes him to reapply that to everyone on the team, so if either of those effects are something you actually don't want, this is a quick way to get rid of them. Third, it can be used after bullet jumping to increase your forward momentum, and so allows you to go a few feet further and slightly faster with the same jumps. And finally, you can roll in the air to heavily change your momentum, and this can sometimes keep you from falling off of hole-filled maps like the recently redone Jupiter or the upcoming Sentient stuff. So we're almost done with the stuff that doesn't involve any specific mods, but I do have one more little trick that I want to cover that's open to newer players. How to create a near instant slam with any weapon, by simply jumping while looking down and then immediately pressing the melee attack button as soon as you start to jump, you will create an aerial slam attack without ever really getting off the ground. And while you will need to come to a complete neutral position before you can jump and initiate this, with very fast weapons like some daggers, you can almost seamlessly weave this trick into your combos with a little bit of practice. So while this isn't really the most useful tactic at the moment thanks to how incredibly powerful melee is, since it can be used almost instantly, can open up enemies to ground finishers, and allows weapons without slam combos to use Exodia Hunt well with a bit of practice, I thought I should throw it in here. Now, what I just covered was stuff that literally anyone can use, but there's also a lot of tricks that are technically open to all frames, but that actually require certain mods or weapons and are generally going to be much more powerful and complex than anything that's just based off of maneuvers. So let's take a moment and cover a handful of tricks that players who've gotten a bit further in the games can access, specifically ones tied to Life Strike, Blood Rush, and Berserker, as well as some tricks that are not in any way specific to, but are really going to benefit from being paired with Gunblades. And let's start with the most damage-oriented trick that's going to be on this list. How to make almost any melee weapon, even if it doesn't have any worthwhile crit stats, able to effectively apply both Blood Rush and Berserker. You see, there's actually several ways to regularly buff yourself with just a simple, flat crit chance, and that sort of buff can be massively important for both of these mods. The most well-known one is with Harrow, yes, but you can also just slap on an Arcane Avenger or 2 and get between 30 to 60% bonus flat crit chance for a few seconds after taking any sort of hit, or you can run with an Adarza Kavat to gain a 60% flat crit buff passively for 50 to 65% of the time, depending on whether you've also given your cat Tech Enhance or not. And if you have any of these buffs active, you'll not only be able to get full use out of Berserker pretty quickly, but you also gain enhanced benefits from the Blood Rush mod. For some odd reason, flat crit buffs do not affect most crit mods, but they are calculated by blood rush, which leads to some pretty insane numbers. This means that even on a 5% crit chance weapon like the Cost Assist, you can reach red crits pretty easily by using any of these methods once you've got a combo up. So yeah, this is an obscenely powerful strategy that not only lets you get red crits on any weapon, but also allows you to make Berserker pretty much superior to Prime Fury on almost anything in the game, regardless of the weapon's base crit chance. Next up, let's talk about a trio of tricks that are somewhat usable by most melee weapons, but that are generally going to be at their very best when tied with gunblades. And let's actually begin with a weapon pairing that I really like running. You see, there is one general type of weapon that works extremely well with gunblades and Melee 2.9's instant weapon swapping, and for an incredibly obvious reason once you think about it. Anything that is built around a rechargeable battery. Yeah, whenever you're running around with the Fullman, the Plinks, the Cycron, or anything else that recharges, after you run out of charge, you can just press your melee button 2 or 3 times, and then swap back to your main gun, and that will be either fully recharged or really close to it. And while you can obviously use this with any weapon, it tends to work especially well with gunblades due in part to, well, the whole gun part of their kit. No need to get any closer to the enemy, as long as you are in the same general sort of range as most of the recharging weapons have, you can just unload from where you are and be pretty effective. And this works especially well with the Flux Rifle, the Cycron, or really just any status heavy weapon that can get a lot of procs out per second thanks to Condition Overload, by using those weapons to quickly dump a ton of corrosive procs on the enemy and then instantly swapping to a non-corrosive based melee of some sort. You can dramatically enhance your weapon's damage thanks to all of that armor removal and Condition Overload's insane damage enhancement, which admittedly has little function in close range for gunblades, as they are just kind of disgustingly strong, and 1 to 3 hits should be killing pretty much anything even at level 160 if you are at close range. But since this is such a large damage increase, it also naturally boosts Gunblade's ability to kill off enemies who are far enough away that they would either start suffering from fall off or from missing the bulk of their pellets, which means that it will still be a worthwhile setup to run at pretty much any level. And yes, you can do a variant of this with more than just gunblades and recharging weapons, and swapping between an armor stripper like the AK Bronco Primes and a Condition Overload melee weapon is well worth using against pretty much any high level target that can be affected by status effects, but gunblades will be the ones that get the most benefit from this trick on average due to it also increasing the range at which they can do effective amounts of damage. Alright, so just one more trick to cover in this episode, and it is possibly the most useful one, especially on frames that do not have any form of built-in healing. And it's actually something that has been in the game for a while, but that wasn't really made useful until Melee 2.9 changed one tiny little thing. You see, back in the old system, you used to have to manually draw your weapon before you were actually counted as being in stance mode, which also meant you had to draw your weapon before you could start channeling with it. However, now that we are in Melee 2.9 and can instantly start meleeing at our best by just pressing the melee button, one of channeling's more unusual mechanics has opened up something that's kind of new that you can do with the Lifestrike mod. You see, you can activate or deactivate channeling at any time when you've got your melee out and are not crowd controlled, even if you are in the middle of an attack animation. Which, admittedly, used to not really matter much. Best thing about it was that it allowed you better control over your energy costs while you were channeling, but that wasn't a really big deal for most builds, as not that many people channeled for longer than it took them to realize that that energy cost and damage was kind of awful. But now, the ability to instantly start an attack that's in full stance mode and allows channeling, even if you've got your gun out, has opened up a nice little trick that you can do if you've got the Lifestrike mod equipped and have fairly quick fingers. You see, if there is an enemy anywhere near you and you need to heal, you can just instantly start to attack them with your melee and press the channeling key before you actually land the hit to activate Lifestrike and heal up off of them. And unless the enemy is both armored and at extremely high levels, a single hit with a good weapon will often do enough damage to give you a full heal on any of the normal frames, especially if that hits a slight attack, hits multiple enemies, or of course if you're using something that does disgusting amounts of damage per hit like the Redeemer Prime or the Sarpa. And the moment that single attack is done, you can just instantly swap back to your gun and get right back to shooting things. Assuming you've got a relatively quick weapon, the hold maneuver takes less time than is required to cast pretty much any ability in the game, costs only 12 energy, and is just a fantastic trick that's worth using on pretty much any frame. And I think that's a pretty good place to end this list for today. Between the instant heals, instant slams, and all of the other tricks I listed, hopefully there has been at least something here that you'll find some use for. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please tell me, as I've got at least enough tricks listed out to do 1 or 2 more videos, and I really think it would be a lot of fun to make this into a series if I can manage it. So, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you learned anything, leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you later. Farewell.